Hi there, everybody. Let's pull that up a little bit. There we go. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm very excited about tonight because I know so many of you watched the film, and the real purpose tonight is really to offer you a little Q&A about if you want to know anything about the film or about Date with Destiny. But also I have a mission, and my mission at the end here, I'd like to really show you and share with you maybe something that tonight, before we part, that could truly change the quality of your life with zero exaggeration or hyperbole. I know everybody pumps people up about things, but there is a change that I've made even since Date with Destiny in the last year and a half that has added more joy, more happiness to my life and to my family than anything I've ever done in my life. So tonight, the last thing I want to do is offer you this experience directly through Facebook Live, and then you can test for yourself and see whether or not it's everything that I'm promising you. So maybe just to start with, as questions are starting to come in here, my team's going to be, if you're making comments here on Facebook Live, there also, if you hashtag I'm Not Your Guru on Twitter, we'll see your questions there. We've actually got a few people that you'll be able to see live also on Google Hangout so that I can see them and answer their questions and you can see them as well. So it's kind of nice. And we have people all over the world, it looks like from about 50 countries or 60 countries so far. There were more than 10,000 people doing parties tonight all over the earth showing people the film. So I'm excited to see, and I'll be watching on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram any comments that you guys have. But for right now, the number one question everybody asks me first is, why now? Why did you finally decide to do this at Date with Destiny? Why did you decide to make a documentary? And quite frankly, I didn't. It's kind of an interesting story. Joe Berlinger, who is two-time Academy Award nominated, he's got 2 Peabodys, he's got 2 Emmys, he's got 7 nominations for Emmys. He's just genius. If you have not seen his documentaries, I can't encourage you enough to really go after them. One of them that I had seen previously in a meeting was Metallica, Some Kind of Monster. And it was a film that was raw and real, showing these heavy metal guys at a stage of life where they pretty much hated each other and they had to figure out how to break their own internal demons and transform or to be able to stay as a band and succeed again. And it was fascinating the way he did it. He also did a documentary called Paradise Lost, which is a series of films done over 2 decades. And in it, he was sent in to do a story on these 3 people that murdered someone. At least that's what everybody thought. That's what the town thought. But in 2 decades, he uncovered the fact that all 3 men were innocent and they were eventually released. And so he and I met at a party. And we were introduced by the gentleman who made the TV show Billions. If you haven't seen Billions, it's a really interesting show on Showtime. And it has a life coach in it who coaches these hedge fund billionaires. If you have seen it, the woman who is the life coach, I trained her. She's using tools and language that I use. Everything is, I've trained her except maybe the sex scenes. I clearly didn't do that. But the point is, I met him. We had this incredible conversation. We were really deep, really quick. And I sensed that this man was turning 50. He has all these Academy Awards nominations, these great Emmys, all these awards. More importantly, he saved 3 men's lives. And yet, clearly, he wasn't fulfilled. And so I invited him to come to Date with Destiny as my guest. And he told me afterwards, and he'd be with you tonight, except he's on a plane. We've spent the last 2 weeks doing interview after interview, 10, 12 a day to give you an idea in Los Angeles and New York. But I'll share with you what he shared with some of the audiences. He said, when I met Tony, he said I was engaged, but I had no idea who he was. I knew his name. I knew Shallow Hal. He said, but I didn't even know he did seminars. And he said, if you would have asked me in 2012, this is, Joe speaking, he said, would I, as a seminar guy, he goes, I'd never go to a seminar. He said, so it was really weird that I somehow got in his head and got him to decide to come. And he said, I wouldn't even take a 6-day vacation. And I'm not going to go 6 days to a seminar, but he did. And in those days, it was in Palm Springs, California. So he had to fly from New York to Palm Springs. And he said, look, I'm a very skeptical, hard-nosed New York filmmaker who's seen the worst side of life. And he said, so, I just got you to know, I'm a little skeptical. And I said, fine. He came to the program. In the first 2 hours, with the music, with people opening up to each other, he freaked out. He bolted for the door to try and get out, and he called his wife and said, God, this Tony Robbins guy is so nice. He invited me to this, but I can't go another 6 hours. I certainly can't go another 5 days. And his wife said to him, honey, she said, look, you've already carved the time out. Clearly, there's something there that you need. Stick it out. Just at least go for a full day. Stay for a day. And then you can make the decision. Don't make a rash judgment. He said that was really important because the next morning we did a process. If you've seen the film, it's about 10 minutes in the film. But in real life, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. And it's a process where I have people go back and uncover their earliest memory. If I asked you, what is your earliest memory? What do you come up with? And in the process, people dig to find their earliest memory, and then I have them find a memory before their earliest memory, to find a memory they have maybe forgotten or let go of. And what happens is when you find the memory before those early memories, very often what's been holding you back gets released. And for Joe Berlinger, he said he was 45 minutes in this state. He opened his eyes and he said, I also would have said I'm not a crier in 2012. And he said, I cried harder than I could ever remember in my life. He said, but I also felt this incredible weight lifted from me. And he said, it wasn't like the heavens opened and my life was perfect, but he said, it struck me. It struck me so deeply. And he said, so I decided to stop judging and just go for it and commit to the 6 days. And of course, he had an amazing transformational experience that just touched his life. So he said about day 4, he started thinking, I want to make this into a film. And he started thinking about it, because what he was most moved by, he said, was to walk in that room. We have people from 71 different countries. You have people from every background, every age, every socioeconomic setup, every religious belief. And all these diverse people, he says, within a short time, he said, Tony, just blew my mind to see that all of the barriers that we have for each other just disappeared. And he said, and all of a sudden, people that were coming to them for their own reasons, their own selfish reasons, they want to work on themselves, nothing wrong with that. He said, all of a sudden, the selfishness disappeared and we're all there for each other. And he said, I've just never felt that any place in my lifetime, that kind of connection, that kind of caring, that kind of support, that kind of love. And I wanted to see if I could take this 3-dimensional experience and put it on the 2-dimensional experience of making a film. And he said he thought for sure I'd want to do it. So he called me up and he thanked me profusely. And then he said, I want to make a documentary out of Date with Destiny. And I said, no. And he was completely shocked. Now, I didn't say no because I didn't respect him. Bear in mind, here's a man, as I said to you, that's saved 3 people's lives that no one else could have saved, at least no one else had saved. I mean, I have unbelievable respect for this man, but I see about 200,000 people a year in 12 to 15 countries that I travel to each year. And I only see 2,500 people one time a year in the US and one time a year in Australia to do Date with Destiny. And people do 10, 15, 20 pages of homework before we begin. And I read all that. It takes me about 10 days just to dig in and scan and pull all that out so that I'm prepared for whatever's in that room. My psyche is ready. And to go into those people, I want people to have a private experience. It's tough. And it's an intimate room for me because normally, my seminars are 8 to 10,000 people. We limit this one to 2,500 so I can do the homework and be prepared. And one of the things that I was concerned about is we use image magnification, right? Because you've got 2,500 people, you put a big screen so people can see their face and what's going on. We're trying to hold this thing still. Thank you, because you have to do this on an iPhone or an iPad.
A human tripod.
I have a human tripod. It's my wife behind me here, bouncing around. If you're getting seasick, I'm sorry. Just trying to figure out how to brace this thing. But anyway, long story short, and the bottom line is, we use image magnification, but if you're going to have somebody do a documentary when they're, they got a camera this close to your face while you're trying to change your life, I just told Joe, I said, it's a great idea. It's a great concept of documentary, but it'll be too disruptive. And I said, my number one priority is the people. So we can't do it. And my second reason, quite honestly, was I was skeptical, quite frankly, that how are you going to take 6 days of 12, 13, 14-hour a day seminar and convert that into less than 2 hours in a documentary? I mean, if you've seen the film, those interventions I do are usually an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours. And in the film, they're reduced to 7 minutes. In real life, I did 35 of those over the 6 days. So he's only able to show one and cut it down. But that's his gift. That's what I'm so grateful to him for. And if he was here, I'd give him a hug. And I hope, my best way to give back to him is to say, check out his other films besides this one, because you'll become a fan of this man. He has a genius capacity. And anybody who's been to Date with Destiny will tell you that the spirit of that event has been caught by him. So I'm very excited. He also, by the way, was really concerned because this Date with Destiny he went to, he saw a woman there, he saw these interventions where a woman there, for example, her name is Rain, she's a dear friend of mine now, but her face was disfigured on a pretty severe way for her, so much so that she wanted to kill herself. She wanted to commit suicide. And there was a man in the room who was also suicidal, who was blind. And I integrated the two. I had the blind man touching her face and telling her what he feels and her beauty. And they healed each other. It was magnificent. But what's so cool is Joe's like, am I going to get those again? We also had a guy at the 2012 event that Joe went to who was a sergeant in the Marines, and he got out and he had severe PTSD, like trying to hold the microphone was like bouncing it back and forth like this, making noise. He had dark glasses because of his light sensitivity. He had insomnia and migraine headaches and PTSD. He'd buried 32 of his brothers, the soldiers with him, and just didn't know how to survive. And it took me about an hour and a half to recondition his nervous system to where his hands were solid, no shaking. I got it so the lights became a trigger for him to relax instead of his nervous system reacting, and got rid of the insomnia, got rid of the PTSD. And it was so powerful that a year later we brought him on CNN. And the producer at CNN, I'd sent her just to film. We film everything, not like Joe's filming, but just filming for me to be able to train myself or look back or show other people the work we've done. And she'd watched this man. When he walked in live on CNN, the producer, a female, started crying, like really crying. And they're like, what's going on? She goes, I just can't believe this is the same man, because he walked in like a movie star, you know, no glasses, this incredible energy. So Joe was also worried, are there going to be great examples here? And I said, trust me, Joe will be fine. And the last thing I'll tell you about the film, we'll do Q&A, was my only agreement I made with Joe. It's his film. I didn't even like the title, I'm Not Your Guru, but you know, I am not a guru, and I say that in the seminar because I want people to know I'm not here to be the person you're dependent upon. You change yourself, but I'm a good coach, I'm a good help. But I didn't like a lot of things initially, but it's his film, and he got to do it. But the way he got me over my concern was he said, what if I come and I start to film, and if the cameras disrupt people, we shut it down, thing's over, and you know, it's my loss. And he said, but if it works, it's my film. I got all access pass, I edit the way I want. And I said, if it doesn't disrupt the people, we're okay. But I gave him one more criteria. I said, I want you to wait 1 year to put this film out, because I want you to follow up with the people a year later and show what really happened to them. Because, you know, most people think that change takes forever. Like I said in the film, you know, most people think it took me 10 years to change. And it's just not true. It took you a moment. There's a moment when you said no more, or it's over, or I love you, or let's begin, or I do. Our life changes in the moment we make those kinds of decisions. And so most people think change is forever and it's hard, or if it's quick, it won't last. In most cases, when it's quick, it doesn't last because no one did anything. They just said they want to do something or promised it. And promises get broken, promises even to ourselves. But when you've reconditioned your beliefs and values that control what you think and feel, when you recondition the way your body and your emotions work together, and you do that 6 days and nights, things change. And so I knew they'd be fine. And my favorite part of the film, if you've not seen it, is to see the end. I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it, and see where these people are today. It's pretty damn exciting. So let's do some Q&A now. Let's find out what you want to know about that. Hopefully gives you a little background on how the film came about. And I've got my staff here to pull from both Twitter and Facebook, and we've got some people on Google Hangouts. So where would you like to start, Mary? Let's do some questions.
All right, Tom. Come on in here.
Okay.
Got all kinds of questions.
You got to bring this down.
Nice.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, Gary Wallace on Facebook writes in and says, Tony, you look short for once, so we must have a funny camera angle. Funny Pearl, maybe you can do that.
There you go.
There you go.
That's the lake out there. We're in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, if you know where that is. It's a little place that we had to escape to.
Okay. First question comes from Ryan in Tampa from Facebook, and he writes, Tony, you mentioned in an interview that I saw this week, lots of interventions ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yes.
What is one that you wish was in the film, or what can you tell us about what else happened?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh my gosh, there were 35, so I wish they were all there, but then it's a 72-hour, film. There is one in particular is a woman that I actually met 14 years ago. That'd be 16 years ago now. She came to Date with Destiny in Palm Springs that many years ago. And when she came, it's because someone brought her there because she was suicidal. It makes it sound like everybody's suicidal because Date with Destiny, but the Mark Benioffs of the world from Salesforce, the Peter Gubers who owns the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors and the Dodgers, these are all people that go. People go who are hungry. People go that want to take things to a next level. And some people do that because they're the best in the world and they're always looking for the edge. And some people do it because they're facing real challenges. And I do the suicide examples because if you can see somebody who's truly suicidal transform themselves, and you go look at your life and you go, I have no problems. I mean, I can apply this stuff with the little stuff I'm dealing with if they can get over that situation. So there was a woman, her daughter she brought her daughter was sick. She took her to the doctor. The doctor said she's fine and sent her home. And that night, her daughter died in her own bed. The doctor misdiagnosed. So, of course, this woman as a mom, her daughter's her firstborn, she was destroyed by this. She blamed herself as if she could have done anything. She listened to the doctor. Most of us would. I mean, how would you know any different? And she wanted to kill herself as a result, even though she had other children. And so I did this work on her. It was very intense. And so that was 16 years ago, or 14 years before I saw her again. Now I'm on stage. We're down and doing Date with Destiny. And I reach out to call on somebody. And I just did, they weren't even raise their hand. I just call on people. I strike sometimes so you're not ready when I come. And this woman looked vaguely familiar. And as she starts talking, I started to realize this is the woman that I met 14 years ago. And her daughter was there, grown up, the other daughter that survived. And there was so much pain, there was so much anger, there was so much hurt, if you can imagine, because for a mom to want to say, I'm going to take my own life, and her daughter's still there, her daughter interpreted that as, I don't matter, instead of interpreting it as, I'm in shock because of the loss of your sister. And that carried on for all these years. So I did a really fun, powerful, dynamic intervention. I think you can learn a lot between mother-daughter, father-daughter, father-son. It's the same kind of dynamic. So I asked, there's so many I wanted to put in there, but I really wanted to put in there too, and just made it too long. So Netflix has added that as bonus material. I believe it's on there right now. And if you want to watch that, I think you'll find it very moving. So that's the answer to that question. Who's next?
Okay, Tony, I got a good one for you.
Cool.
First, we're going to jump over here.
Okay. We're gonna connect two technologies. Facebook Live doesn't allow me to see you guys and talk to you. I mean, where I can see you, you can see me, but Google Hangout does, so we're gonna combine the technologies. So let's go ahead, here we go.
Okay, can you hear us Google Hangout? No sound.
No sound, oh,
okay,
that's not working.
stand
Oh, you
by.
take that off right there, that's it, right there.
Yep.
We're high tech
Here
around
we
here, for
go.
God's sakes. Can you hear us?
And
there
I'm
you are.
gonna take this.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
Look at this. Right. Woohoo!
I'm here with my mom and my sister. We're big fans. My mom just found this book on her bookshelf with the original receipt from 1993.
Well, I'm glad to see she was so moved to read it.
And this is the book she got me for Christmas. I'm so excited about it.
What's your name? I didn't hear your name. I'm sorry.
I'm Amy, and Jackie and Carrie.
Great. Hi, Amy.
We're so excited to chat with you. Your documentary was incredible. And it kind of felt like this experience that we would totally want to have the chance to have, and then we finally were able to. It's so insane that you brought this to the movies. I'm curious, with the incredible stories that were in the movie, what maybe didn't make the cut that you wish could have impacted more people that really couldn't get there? Was there anything that didn't make it into the film?
Well, that's a good question. Let me answer it directly here on Facebook. There was, this is a 72-hour program. So I just mentioned one of the interventions that didn't make it in the film. I don't know if you heard, because you guys were probably cut off sound-wise. It was, I just mentioned, it's a mother-daughter, where the mother I'd actually met 14 years before, and she was suicidal, helped her turn around. But the daughter that survived, her sister died, felt like she was never enough. And the intervention I did with, I think so many people feel like we're not enough. We're not, beautiful enough. We're not handsome enough. We're not smart enough. We're not rich enough. We're not funny enough. And I think it's something at some level we all have to deal with. And then we're afraid if we're not enough, we won't be loved. And love is the oxygen of life. So I think it's one really worth doing. But honestly, I could list one after another because, we're in a position where there aren't many that I don't think relate, or I won't spend the time on it, right? So, I think that also what's not in there is obviously the content of all the exercises. But, if an intervention is 2 hours by itself normally, and the whole thing is 2 hours, the purpose is to try and give you an experience. And as I said, I was really skeptical, but I think anyone's been to Date with Destiny would tell you, you didn't experience all of Date with Destiny, but you experienced the spirit of it. You experienced the emotion of it. And you saw what I do in interventions as it really happens. And I think it's done an amazing job of doing that.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. It was so...
I'm so glad you shared it together as a family. That touches my heart.
Great. Yes. Different generations is great. It appeals to everyone.
You know what? For calling in and chatting with me, I'm going to invite all three of you to come to Unleash the Power Within. My 3-day program as my guest. All right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So where are you in the world? Where are you guys based?
We're in Columbus, Ohio.
Great. Well, the next one, I'm going overseas to do programs like in Sydney, Australia, and so forth. So the next closest one a few months ago will be in, I guess it's in November in San Jose, California. We'll have about 10,000 people there. And if you want to travel there, you guys will be my guests at the event. So what I want you to do is stay on the line here and give Tyler, the person who's running this Google Hangout, give him your details so we can send you an invitation, guys.
Thank you very much.
Really nice meeting you.
Thank you.
God bless.
Excellent. Okay, Tony.
All right.
Let's come back here to Facebook. We see all these
Okay,
comments.
now you can see I'm tall. Here's her
He's
head. She
still
fits under my
tall.
arm. Here it is.
Okay, Tone. So these questions are piling in.
Okay, great.
Great. I'm going to hand this off to our lovely ladies to hold
Okay.
the camera.
Thank you very much, lovely ladies.
And,
Oh, I hold it like that.
yep, you hold it like that.
I hold it like
And
that.
we're gonna get-
Here, how about you? How about while we're getting everybody waiting here, why don't you do this and I can still see what you're doing. There you go. All right, perfect. Because they want to go to the next level. And so what my life is focused on is helping people really to experience what I consider to be an extraordinary life, which would be life on your terms, not mine. So for some people, you know, that's 3 beautiful children. For someone else, it's building $1 billion business. For someone else, it's writing beautiful poetry. And then what we want to do is uncover what is it that's preventing you from having life that way now, and make the shifts in whatever that is. Sometimes it's a lack of strategy, right? You're just not sure how. But more often, there's a psychological component. There's the fear of failure. There's the sense of uncertainty, like I don't know where to start, so I don't start. There's so many elements that are there. And when people go through Date with Destiny, what they're really doing, they're not going there to just deal with trauma. But I pick those people specifically because I want to find some extreme examples. There are plenty of other examples, because if you see a extreme example, you go, man, if they could turn that around, I can do this. I used to do a seminar called You Have No Problems. And I would bring in literally a dozen people that were blinded, that lost arms or legs, all their family was murdered. But I picked them because these people were truly happy. And I would use this extreme example because then by the end of the conversation, by the end of the night, you're going, I have no problems, right? I mean, if these people can be happy, there's no excuse for me. So in the event, we walk you through to figure out what is it that's controlling every thought, every feeling, every emotion of your life, literally. And what's controlling it are your beliefs, your values, and your rules. And most of us didn't consciously create those. So what we really do here is we show you how to decide what's great so you don't throw out what's already great, and what needs to be improved. And then we wire that into our bodies so that, if you can imagine, most people want things that are in conflict. They want to make $1 billion and sleep till noon. They want to make everybody happy and they want to tell the truth. Those things don't always go together really well, right? So what we really do is show people how to align themselves so they're pulled towards what they want instead of having to push so hard. You wear out when you try to push yourself. No matter how much willpower you have, there's only so much, even if you have a lot. And so you want to make it so it's not willpower. When you're pulled to do something, it gives you energy. When you push to do something, you expend energy and you kind of burn out. So that's what we do. But Date with Destiny, we just use this as an example because it was intimate, but many people come to unleash the power within. That's that most people go to. It's really, inexpensive by comparison. You can go there for, like $595 and you get a special or something on it, depending on where you're sitting in the room. But it's 4 days of total immersion. And again, we have people from every walk of life. The events are usually 8,000 to 10,000 people. And I'll invite you. I decided I'm going to invite the people that took the time to come in and work so hard to ask a question. So you stay on the line too, and I'll invite you to come as my guest to the one that we're doing coming up. Where'd you say you are based again? I'm sorry?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York, great. Well, you'd have to fly to the other side if you want to go soon to California, but I think it'd be worth it to you. Would you like to come?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Done. Speak to Tyler here, give him your details, and I'll make sure that we get you an invitation sent to you.
Great, thank you.
Nice meeting you.
You too.
God bless.
We have another question here.
Hold
Okay.
on. Come here, Bunny.
Of course, sure. Lovely. From
Here she comes.
Hi, family. Hello, everyone.
Sage.
We have another question from
Okay.
Michelle Friedrigler. You have an amazing ability, Tony, to transform how individuals see and feel themselves. We are at a time in our world that transforming what we think of ourselves is nice. How do we transform beliefs that people have about others?
Beliefs people. Okay, so now you're trying to do God's work. Okay, so people are going to believe what they're going to believe. I mean, this show is a perfect example of this. Joe Berlinger was saying, he said, Tony, there's 3 audiences here. He said, there's your fans, and he said, frankly, I could put a black screen up with your voice, and they think it's a great film. He said, and then there's the haters, and like Taylor Swift says, the haters are going to hate. Someone who doesn't know who you are, doesn't have an experience, and doesn't really want to know, who might even be threatened by it. He said, you're not going to change those people's opinions. And he goes, I'm not either. He said, but the people in the middle, people like me that were skeptical but not closed, people that, really want to improve their life still, he said, that's the vast majority of people around the world, and that's who this is really for. So in my case, I even know I'm not going to change somebody's view, and I've got a lot of influential skills. But I would say to you, is they're trying to change what people feel or believe about someone, it's to really work on you. If you go to, get on an airplane, and the first thing that happens is they say to you for emergency procedures, if there's a problem and we lose oxygen, right? What do they say? These things are going to pop down and they have oxygen, and the first thing you're supposed to do is put that oxygen mask on your child, right? Wrong. They say you're supposed to put on yourself first and then your child. Now, why is that? It's simply because it sounds selfish to take care of myself first, but if I go try to put this on my kid and I don't have the air, I'm going to die and my kid's going to die too. So I think we've got to make sure that we work on us, that we master us. If you can change your feeling where you're not judging other people so much, if you can find places in your own life where you're fearful about what people think and you can learn to let it go, now you can help somebody else do that because you're an example of it. But trying to tell someone verbally how to do that when you haven't done it, it never works because you just don't have the skill. And if you don't have the skill, how are you going to expect to transfer that to somebody else? So my main reason for being on here, I want to take a couple more questions, is because I want to share with you something that I think will answer your question much more powerfully, but I wanted to save it for the end. So I'm going to come back to you if that's okay. But I hope you understand, trying to change people is not the answer. We will all think differently in different states. Have you ever been in a place where you were really frustrated about something in your life and then you snapped at somebody and it had nothing to do with them? It was just the state you're in. And I'm sure you've had times when somebody snapped at you and it wasn't fair. In a lousy state, we behave lousy. We think everybody's terrible. In a beautiful state, I always tell people, can mean people be nice? Of course they can. Mean people can get in a happy, wonderful state and treat you well. Can nice people be mean? Even really nice people, yes, they can get a mean state and do it. So the best way to change is not change other people, but to change the state, the mental, emotional place we live in. If you're in a place where nothing phases you, you really train yourself to remember, listen, don't sweat them all small stuff and it's all small stuff, right? Where you learn to just let go of the stuff that you've made bigger than it is, then you're going to have a level of emotional freedom that when you talk to somebody else, you'll be able to help them because you're already there. That would be the short answer I could try to give you. And I'm going to give you a little longer answer here at the end, but I'm going to give you an exercise to do so it's not just intellectual. It's kind of, I'd rather be there physically because I can show you I'm having to use this technology, but I'm grateful to be able to reach out. So I hope that starts the answer for you. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about how to end suffering, how to really create a beautiful state, because that's the essence of your question. You're just asking it for somebody else. So let's do another question.
That's Great. Wonderful. We have an angel from Twitter. Tony, how can we get involved in teaching our friends and family what we actually learned from the film?
Well, I think the best way to teach people what you learn from the film is to watch it with them, because I'm a big believer that repetition is the mother of skill. My original teacher, Jim Rohn, original mentor, he used to always say, the way you master anything is repetition. Most of us, we read a book, or we attend something, or we learn something, and it kind of goes in, and we have excitement about it, and then, it's part of our memory, but it's not activated. When somebody's got a skill, if you look at somebody, like Curry, and you say, how come he can make those 3-punch shots? It's because he's practiced a trillion zillion times, right? Kobe, who just retired, he would make 300 shots every practice. He wouldn't stop practicing until he made 300 shots in that practice. Well, when you do something over and over and over again, it's going to be in your body. So I'd recommend watch this again, because I bet it's like stepping in the river. It's like, the next time you do it, you're going to be a little different, and do it with someone and then discuss afterwards what you both got out of it. And instead of telling them what they're supposed to experience, that way they haven't experienced themselves. And it can start some really beautiful conversations. We've been seeing that at all the film festivals we're doing, because I've been doing Q&A afterwards like we're doing here, and then getting people to share. So I think that might be the best approach. Let's go back over here to Google Hangout.
All right, Tone.
Let's see here.
Yep.
Sir, I don't know your name, but you're the third person from the left, and you got a nice beard. What's your name?
Can you hear us?
My name is Nathan, and I'm from San Diego.
Okay, Nathan, have you seen the film yet?
I have. It was awesome.
Oh, good. Tell me, what's your question? How can I help?
I was wondering if there was a way to identify your own limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. I mean, there's it's pretty simplistic. I think what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, where in my life am I most stressed? Where are the areas, like, if I were to ask you in your life, where's the areas that you get the most stressed out? Where would you say it is?
Client relationships.
Okay, what's your business, if I can ask?
I'm an accountant.
Okay, and what's stressful in client relationships?
They procrastinate, and then they throw
Those
it on me.
bastards.
Right.
And they throw it on you, and you got to do it the last minute.
Right.
I see. And how predictable is this behavior?
It's 100% predictable.
That was my point. So when we stress out about things that are totally predictable, what it does is it just makes us suffer inside. And what you got to ask yourself is the areas where you suffer, what would you have to believe to feel those feelings? What do you feel? What's the emotion you feel when that situation happens? They dump it all on you. What do you feel? What's the emotion you feel?
Totally obligated to like make good on like getting it done.
Okay. And what else besides obligated do you feel?
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed?
Feeling very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you have to believe to feel overwhelmed in those moments?
That it's my responsibility.
What else would you have to believe besides it's your responsibility? To be stressed, to be overwhelmed.
That I'm not going to be able to get it done.
That's right. So your limiting belief is if they turn it in late, I'm totally responsible and I'm not going to be able to get it done. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you always get it done?
I always get it done.
Yes. So that was my guess. And so guess what? You're stressing, you're creating all this suffering because you're thinking about something, you got a belief about something, and those thoughts make you crazy, but you get it done. You get it done every time. Based on the evidence of your past, you should have no stress. You might prefer them to send it in sooner, but you might create an incentive for them to do that, an economic incentive or a personal incentive. That's different. But because you're suffering not because they turn in late. You're suffering because you believe they shouldn't. You're suffering because you believe because they do it, you're responsible, you're going to be stressed, and you're not going to get it done. And the not get it done is what's making you stressful, but you do get it done. It's so crazy how we as human beings so often make up a story in our head, and we play it over and over again until we believe it, even though it's not true. And it gives us stress. Can you see how that relates for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would be the solution? The solution is what I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes, and I want to do it for several people because it's interesting. I'm seeing the same pattern again and again. Different story, but same pattern. So
Sure.
Please stay tuned. And when I talk about, I'm going to talk about how to end suffering, because that's this experience of stress is a form of suffering. I would never use the word suffering a year and a half ago. If you would have said to me, Tony, do you suffer? I would have laughed at you. I would say, suffer? Are you kidding me? I have 4 amazing kids. They're all adults. I got 3 grandkids that I love. I got the most incredible wife. I have a life where I travel the world, and I have a mission I love. And everywhere I go, I meet beautiful, amazing people. Suffering? Hell no. But I did. Because I wouldn't use that word suffering. Kind of like if you go to an achiever and go, are you fearful? They go, I'm not fearful. I'm just stressed, right? So stress is the achiever word for fear. Because if I follow the trail of your stress, it'll take me to what you're fearful about. And similarly with me, I was suffering because I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling, fearful. I was feeling same thing as you. I can't believe people dumping all this on me last minute. I would have all those things. I could relate to you completely, right? Because people think I'm a machine because I can accomplish a lot. And so they don't think about it. They do that. But what I found was I could end that suffering and I can have my life be 100 times more beautiful. So you're kind of taking me to that subject, but I think I should take maybe 1 or 2 more before I do that. So please stay on the line there and do it. Is this helpful, though? Is it
Very helpful.
Okay,
Very
good,
helpful.
good. Take care of yourself. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Good one.
Wonderful. Okay, we have one that just came in. Hi, everybody. We have one that just came in on Twitter. Hayward Boyce just saw you on or just his question was, there's famous people in the documentary. Who's your favorite public individual that you've ever coached?
Wow, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Because whatever I answered, someone's going to say, why wasn't I your favorite? You know how it goes. But I would say one of the most interesting ones was Mike Tyson. When people ask me who's blew you away the most, it was Mike Tyson. I got to work with Mike Tyson, got to work with him after he bit off the ear incident, if you recall that. And I went to go see him in person, and I expected him to be kind of a little bit crazy, to say the least. And when I sat down with him, he blew me away. He's one of the most, you'd never believe this, but Mike Tyson's one of the most well-read person you can imagine. I mean, deep literature, psychological emotions. He's read the Bible, the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, And this is Mike Tyson, and he's quoting from all these religious texts. And as we're sitting down here, I'm like, he was so different than anything I ever would have anticipated. And then he was telling me, and a couple of guys that were with him were telling me that, he'd been in jail and that he had gotten the African Americans and the white gang members and Hispanic gang members, he pulled them all together and said, listen, we're all killing each other, but the enemy's outside. We're hated by those people. Why don't we band together inside? And there was a time that there was some major unrest there, and the gentleman the warden said that this Mike Tyson was the guy that stopped the unrest. I mean, it's mind-boggling. So in the middle of talking philosophically about love and life and philosophy and God and human beings, in the middle of all this, he turns to me and says, and sometimes, I think I could save the world. And he goes, sometimes I think, if there was a button I could push and just kill everybody, I'd do it right now. I'm like, oh my God, the extremes. And after I worked with him, when he went to his next fight, I got to tell you the truth, I was holding my breath. Is he going to bite? Because he was losing. I thought, oh my God, if he loses it again, he bites off somebody's nose, I'm in trouble here. But fortunately, he did not. And Mike has mellowed over the years, as I'm sure you've seen, and has a much better life. But I've had the privilege of working with some just amazing people. Paul Tudor Jones is one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. I've coached him for 22 years. Every day he sends me his report. I see him 3 or 4 times a year. I'm on the phone when we need to. And in 22 years, he's not lost money. In 1987, when the stock market had its biggest crash ever, percentage-wise, still the biggest percent crash, he made 200% for his clients that year, if you can imagine. But then he lost money. So I was brought in to turn him around, and I've been working for 22 years, and he hasn't lost money in 22 years. Pretty amazing. Somebody like Mark Benioff of Salesforce.com. Mark came to 3 of my Unleash the Power Within seminars in a row, and then he came up to me and he said, because of you, I've decided, I've made a decision. I'm leaving Oracle. I'm going to start this new company called Salesforce.com. And he said, I'm telling you, remember my face. You're coming on the journey with me. Your work is going to shape my entire company, your RPM, the whole thing. And he goes, we're going to do $100 million in business. I promise you. I tease him about it now because that was almost 15 years ago. And I think this year they're going to do $8 billion. And Salesforce is now the background for everybody from Facebook to Coca-Cola to, you name it, the biggest companies in the world and small companies too. So I've met a lot of amazing people. Gorbachev, Princess Diana, Pitbull is a dear, dear friend of mine. I was with him day before yesterday when he was receiving his star on the Walk of Fame there in Hollywood, and he asked me if I would speak about him. He's listened to my stuff since he was a boy. He grew up in Miami, in Little Havana, a really tough area, and the only role models around him at that stage were really drug dealers. And his mom was concerned, and at 17, it looked like he was going the wrong direction, and she started playing these audio programs, my personal power program, in the car. And in the beginning, he was annoyed, and then he loved it, and it's pretty much, he's described, shaped his life and his philosophy. And so he gives me so much credit, but the truth is, he's just an incredible human being. What I love about Pitt is Armando is still in charge. The young boy who's got a heart of gold is still there. He'll stop on the street, same as me. He always looks to take care of people, to connect with people, to light them up. So I have a tremendous respect for him. And another one would be Peter Guber, and I'll finish with that one, who owns the Golden State Warriors, owns the LA Dodgers, one of my dearest friends for the last 30 plus years. He saw the film last night. We were at a film festival or a film premiere in Los Angeles, and just genius. So Steve Wynn, another one, built Las Vegas. So I have a lot of people that I started out coaching, and then 10, 20 years later, we're dear, dear friends. And quite frankly, I learn from the people I coach, I think maybe more than they even get from me. So I hope that answers your question. Let's do one more.
Okay. Tone, I'm pulling in some questions here from Facebook.
Okay.
We've got two things to note. Greg Young says, I'm watching the 2016 presidential candidates in suffering.
Yes.
And Sonia Tucker writes, Tony, there's so much hate in the world. What's your advice?
Okay. These are not easy questions, obviously, to answer in a minute, but I want to address them accurately. Someone asked me the other day at a film festival here we were doing, they said, how do you explain someone, what kind of person would, go and do what we just saw happen in Nice, what we saw happening in Paris, less than a year ago, what we saw happening in San Bernardino or in Orlando, kill men, women, and children just randomly and take pleasure in it. And I said, I can tell you who it wasn't. It wasn't a happy person that did that. It wasn't a fulfilled person. happy and fulfilled human beings do not go out and kill humans. They don't try to hurt anyone. They don't try to steal from anyone. And so I think, we live in this world right now where there's real issues, as you said, and we have 2 presidential candidates, and the world we're in right now is so divisive because we have all the media that competes with each other, right? Social media, traditional media, and the traditional media is in trouble because, so many people spend so much time on the web, they don't go to those places. So they have to get your attention. So the news, for example, today is not designed to inform you. It's not designed to educate you. It's designed to startle you so that you'll pay attention, so they'll get your eyeballs. That's how they get paid. Well, to get our attention today, people pretty much have to shock people. They have to do something silly or crazy to make that thing happen. So right now, you see Black Lives Matter as an example, and while you may not appreciate some of the people in that group, the group's intention is not to say white lives don't matter, and you don't have to be against Black Lives Matter to be for the police. What we really need in our society today is to stop demonizing each other. We've got to go back to a point where we start to listen to one another and try to step in the other person's shoes. And, I think all Americans are hurting right now, for example. If our brothers and sisters, no matter what the color of their skin are, have to be worried when their children go out that a police officer of all people might hurt them or kill them, if that was you in your family, you'd go crazy. I have a dear friend who's got both an adopted African-American son and a white son, and he tells me every time the white son goes out, he's fine. When the African-American son goes out, he's always worried. So this isn't an issue that can go without. And a lot of people say, yeah, but most police are great. Most police have the toughest job in the world. They give their souls. They're not paid enough. They put their lives on the line for all of us. So I'm in the police's corner. But if we had 100 planes landing at LAX in Los Angeles and 98 land perfectly, 98 police officers are perfect as the metaphor, and 2 crash and burn and kill somebody, no one's going to talk about the 98 good ones, unfortunately. So we have to bring this together. We have to find that balance. And my optimism is not fake optimism or just enthusiasm. My optimism is I study history. And if you look at history, we as a society throw our pendulums. And the only time a culture changes is when there's enough pain. If you and I can do it without pain, most people don't. Most individuals have to get so much pain they finally change something, because we all fear change. We all fear the unknown. But I think we're at a threshold now where there's so much pain in our society that something's going to change. Now, on the presidential side, I was just with George W. Bush, and I have to admit, I did not have a high opinion of George W. Bush. He's one of the only presidents I've not worked with. And I had this 2-hour meeting with him, 2.5-hour meeting with him. And I left impressed by him. I know that sounds insane to some of you who might have a negative view, but you got to remember, everything you view of him is the way the media has framed things. And I got to spend 2.5 hours doing what I do best, which is drilling into somebody and asking him questions about all the decisions he made. And while you might not agree with all his decisions, if you knew what he knew at the time and you understood how he made the decision, you would respect him. I know that sounds insane to some of you. You probably think I'm nuts. But I would tell you if you had direct experience. But we don't have direct experiences anymore. See, part of our problem is we trade beliefs instead of experiences. A belief about George Bush, a belief about white people, black people, Asian people, Latin people, a belief about anything is a poor substitute for a direct experience. Now, I know both these presidential candidates directly, personally, as people that I know in my life, so I have a direct experience in them and I can filter things through, but the rest of society doesn't have that. And with George Bush, we were seeing him through one filter. So you can believe you know what China's like, but when you go to China, you'll have an experience and you'll actually know what it's like in China. But we believe our beliefs are real. Whatever we believe, we've told ourselves enough, or enough people have told us we believe it's real. So one thing George Bush said to me, though, the reason I brought it up is I respect him because he's not attacked President Obama ever. He's never even criticized him. And he said, you know why, Tony? I made it through 8 of some of the toughest years that we've had in this country. We had the biggest economic crisis in our history, and we had 9/11. He said, I did the work that I thought was right, and now the public has picked a new president, and I'm a citizen, and I need to support him. And I thought that was really elegant. But he said something really interesting about the presidential component. I said, aren't you concerned? And privately, he shared with me what he feels. Obviously, he wished his brother would have won, but his brother spent $100 million and got virtually no votes, so obviously it didn't work out too well. But he said something interesting. He said when President Nixon was leaving office in shame, he thought he destroyed the American presidency. And he said, you know what I figured out as time went by? The office is bigger than the occupant. And I thought, that is really, really simple, clear wisdom. The office is bigger than the occupant. He said, if we throw our pendulum and the person we put in there is not a good person, we will then get them out 4 years from now, we'll put somebody else in there. But this office, this country is more powerful than the individual running it. And having worked with several presidents, I can tell you early in my life, I was surprised. They're just human beings trying to make decisions in a position of unbelievable stress and power. And so, but what we have as a society, even with our holes, even with the problems in our society, is as strong as anything you can see in the free world. And so I think we need to all try to hear, listen, understand with each other, and we've got to stay out of suffering. So I think I'm going to transition now to that just for time's sake, because it's the main reason I want to reach out to you all. So I hope you're still with me, and I hope you stay with me for the next few minutes, because I really feel like what I'm going to share with you is so simple. But if you'll really stay with me right now, if you want to take a sip of water real fast or get up and shake your body out because you've been sitting for a while, do that if you want to. But I'd like right now to really take you to a place that has changed my life for the better. So here's what it is. Whenever I'm gonna have a sip of water. Okay, I'll have a sip of water. You take a sip, I'll take a sip.
That's nice. There you go. Facebook, thank you. Look at all these 6,000 people in your life. That's awesome.
So when I go to events, I always ask people, why are you here? And people tell me a variety of things. And after I've taken several shares to get a feel for the audience, I'll ask the audience. I say, how many of you came here because, for example, you want to take your business to the next level. You want to grow it, 10, 20, 30%, 100% or more. And I have a lot of business owners in my audiences, maybe almost 70% are self-employed people. Because that type of person usually wants to take control of their life. And so almost everybody raises their hand. And then I say, how many of you are here because you want to produce a change in your body? You want more energy, you want strength, you want vibrancy that can change your life. And you get, 70% of the room raising their hand. And then I say, how many of you came because, you want to transform a relationship, or you want to find an intimate relationship, or you want to reinvigorate it, or you want to bring passion to it? And you get another 60, 70, 80% of the people raising their hand. I say, how many of you want to earn more money? And so after they do, I say, oh, you guys want everything, you're greedy, right? And they usually laugh. And then I say to them, you all want so many things, but I think what you really want, and I'm going to ask you right now as you're listening to me, I think what you really want is an extraordinary quality of life, a magnificent life. And what is that? Well, it's really life on your terms. I'm not here to tell you to be like Tony Robbins. That's absurd. I want you to have what you want. As I said earlier, some people's idea of an extraordinary life is, this beautiful family. Some it's a garden. Some people it's a business. Some people it's praying and connecting with God. There's so many ways to have an extraordinary life. My entire commitment is figuring out what your outcome is, what you want, and then help you get there quicker. Now, since I'm not with you, I'd like to give you two things that are the two skills that I think you have to master to have that life on your terms, that extraordinary life. The first master skill is the science of achievement. And it is a science, meaning there are rules. And if you align with the rules, you're going to succeed. And if you ignore the rules, you're going to pay a price, and it's not a good price. So, for example, in 2008, when I saw so many people losing their homes, losing half their net worth overnight, and I knew it was manipulated, the market was manipulated, because I work with Paul Tudor Jones, it made me crazy. And, those weren't statistics for me, because I grew up with broke. We grew up with no food at times. I fed 100 million people last year through my partnership with Feeding America. I personally fed 58 million meals, and then I provided matching funds. And I did that because I was interviewing these billionaires who all started with nothing. They're all not part of the Lucky Sperm Club. They started with nothing. They built it themselves. And while I'm learning these patterns that can produce tremendous financial abundance, and the patterns were so clear. And I'm going to write this book, and I hadn't written a book in years, and then I just donated $5 million advance on it to feed people, and then I wrote a bigger check because I was just so passionate about getting this out. But in the middle of that, I'm seeing them cut food stamps here in America, the SNAP program. They cut it by $6.8 billion, Congress did, and no one said anything about it. So it's like every family that needs help losing all their meals 1 week a month for 12 months out of the year. And the hope would be that the general public would come up with money to do it. So that's when I said I'm going to feed 100 million people. And by the way, I'm doing it again this year. I'm going to feed 1 billion people over the next 9 years. And if you want to help, you want to donate $1, $5, $100, $1,000, $1 million, I will match you. I will literally match you if you go to feedingamerica.org, I believe it is, and look for the Billion Meals plan. And if you do it, I'll match whatever funds you do. But anyway, the point of this is there are rules to being financially free. If you don't know what they are, you're going to get hurt. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is pain. Ignorance is poverty. What's another science of achievement? Your body. Think about it. Every single one of us has a unique biochemistry, but there are certain fundamentals that are the same for everybody's body. If you do certain things, you're going to have lots of energy and vitality. If you violate those things, you're going to have low energy and you're going to have pain and disease. So how to achieve faster is to find a pathway of power. In other words, I've always believed, my original teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, a personal development speaker, and he said, Tony, success leaves clues. He said, if you want happiness, study happiness. You want to find people that are happy no matter what, find out what they do and do that. Don't study people around you who aren't happy and say, I can't figure out how to do it. You're learning from the wrong people. He used to say, find out what rich people read. And rich was to him, not just financial, it was emotionally rich, spiritually rich, and financially rich, physically rich in energies. Find out what rich people read and read that. And he said, find out what poor people read and don't read that, because you're building the fabric of your life through what you feed it, right, in your mind. So you can speed up your ability to achieve by modeling, by finding someone who's already achieved what you want, and then finding out what do they do differently than you. And it might have taken them 10 or 20 years to figure it out. They might be able to teach you the secrets that what makes them successful in 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months. But my whole focus is how do you compress decades into days? So the science of achievement, the ability to take whatever you dream about and make it real, I've studied it. I spent my lifetime looking for the best strategies for your body, for emotions, relationships. That's what I teach. So I'm all in on that, and I've gotten the benefit of it. And I know it works because I've demonstrated it with my own body, with my own relationships, with my own finances, every aspect of life. So I know most of you are good achievers, and this is something you can study. But for this conversation, there's a second skill that I believe is the most important skill. But when I tell you what it is, it'll seem trite to you initially, I'm sure, because our culture doesn't reinforce this. Our culture teaches you to achieve, break through, find the way, and that's beautiful. But you can achieve everything and still be miserable. In fact, do you know somebody who has things that you'd love to have in your life? A great relationship, great kids, a great business, great economics, and they're still pissed off, frustrated, overwhelmed? I always tell people there's nothing worse than an angry rich man or angry rich woman. You just want to smack them because they have everything going for themselves, but they're there. So the second skill, the more important skill than achievement, is the art of fulfillment. Notice I didn't say the science of fulfillment, I said the art. And the reason it's art is every human being in this world is different in some way. What turns you on, what excites you, what fulfills you will be different than the person next to you, even if they're your lover or your best friend. If you want to know what God or the universe values, it's diversity. Go to any forest, what do you see? Everything's different. It's not the same. So for us to be fulfilled, we've got to find what is that trigger. And it's different for everybody. I'll give you a fun example. Steve Wynn is a dear friend of mine who, you probably know the name again. He's the gentleman that built basically half of Las Vegas, the greatest hotels in Vegas. And he's also just he started with nothing. And he built this, and he's an incredible philanthropist and just a beautiful soul. Dear friend of mine. And one day he calls me up and says, hey, where are you in the world? And I said, I'm in Sun Valley, Idaho. I have a vacation home there, and he does as well. And he says, I'm in Sun Valley. He goes, come on over. He said, I got to show you something. He said, I just bought a painting that I have been just desiring, pursuing, wanting, coveting for, I forget how many years now. I think he said 12 or 14 years. He said, I outbid everybody at Sotheby's, and I got it. And he says, Tony, it's $82 million for this painting. And I said, oh my God, Steve, I can't wait to see it. So I'm driving to his house, and I'm picturing in my mind, what's an $82 million painting look like? It's clearly not any of my house, right? So I thought, well, it must be like a Renaissance painting or, Mona Lisa-like. What is this going to be? And I get to Steve's house, and Steve, always loved Steve, so excited to see him. He goes, no, let me show you. And he takes me over the wall, and I went moot because I looked at it, and it was a big, giant red square with a little bit of orange in it. And I was like, look at this thing going, that's the painting? I said, Steve, give me $100 in 20 minutes. I can do this. Right? So just kind of teasing him a little bit. He's like, hey, that's not how it works. You don't know the story behind this guy. This guy committed suicide. Well, I said, I hope for $82 million. That's his blood, for God's sakes. I mean, come on. But I teased him about it. But I really respect Steve. You know why? I can't find $100 of the value out of that painting, but he can find 82 million of joy. The brush strokes, the sophistication, the angles, the history, what went into it. I see a red square. He sees total ecstasy, beauty, elegance that lifts his spirit. It's mind-boggling. See, all of us are moved by different things, and you've got to find what does it for you, because all the achievement in the world, all the Academy Awards, all the money, all the acknowledgement, all the respect, all the great family, none of it is enough. Most people suffer. And so I'll give you an example. Little more than 2 years ago, I think it's been now, we lost in America here what I consider to be a national treasure. And that national treasure, of course, is a comedian, and his name is Robin Williams. And I'm just curious, how many of you out there all around the world that are watching this, Facebook Live, how many of you didn't like, but loved Robin Williams? I've been in China, I've been, in Beijing, I've been in Tokyo this year, I've been down to Sydney, Australia, to Toronto, Canada, to Brazil, to New York, to LA, you name it. In every one of these places, I've asked people, please raise your hand if you not liked, but loved Robin Williams. I did it after all of the screenings that we did. And in every case, all over the earth, 95 to 98% of the people are raising their hand that they loved him, not liked him. Now that's pretty heady, to have the whole world love you. Now here's the question. Was this guy a master? Was Robin Williams a master of the science of achievement? Was he incredibly good at taking the invisible and making it visible, turning his dreams into reality? You bet he was. He said he wanted his own TV show. How many people come to Hollywood saying that, right? He did it. Then he said he wanted the #1 show. And some of you who are maybe as ancient as I am can remember Mork and Mindy. When you were a kid, sure enough, he got the #1 show. Then he said he wanted to have the most amazing family, and he did that. Then he said, I want to make more money than I could ever spend, and he accomplished that. Then he still wasn't fulfilled, so he said, I want to make movies, and he did that. And that still wasn't fulfilling, so he said, I want to win an Academy Award for not being funny, his #1 skill, and he did it. Then he said he wanted to make the whole world laugh, and he did it. And then he hung himself. He hung himself. How do you explain that? How do you explain a man that hundreds of millions of people loved, who had all the money, all the family, all the friends, all the joy, all the insights, all the skill, killing himself? And the answer is, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. He made everybody happy, but whom? Himself. And that is the ultimate destruction. Putting the mask, remember the metaphor, on your child or on the world, but not on yourself. That's what he did, unfortunately. And he left hundreds of millions of people that loved him, but much more important, he left his own children, he left his own wife scarred. So this thing of fulfillment that our culture doesn't teach us to really build or think it's that important, like, oh, I'll succeed and I'll figure out fulfillment. I'm here to tell you, it's the most important thing in the world, because that happy person is not hurting other people, and the happy person tends to deliver, and yet happy sounds so trite. So here's what I believe in my soul, and this is what I know in my life experience working with so many. The thing that changes your life, there's only one thing that really changes your life forever, and that's a real decision. It's not the conditions of our life that control the quality of our life, it's our decisions. It's our decisions about what are we going to focus on, what's the meaning we're going to give, what are we going to feel, what are we going to do. I always tell people it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped, so you want to choose well. So what am I leaning towards? I want you right now, as we wrap this up, these next 5 minutes or 6, 7 minutes, whatever it's going to take me to do this, I want to lead you to a place where if you choose to tonight, you could change your whole life by making a decision. Now, what decisions control you? Play this with me for a second. I'll give you 3 examples. Right now, while you're listening to me, every day of your life, every moment of your life, you're making 3 decisions. And most of the time, people make these decisions unconsciously, meaning they're not aware of it. So since you're doing the same decision all the time, you're not aware of it, you keep living the same life. It doesn't change, it doesn't get any better. But if you become aware of these decisions, it could change it all. So one of those decisions that you're making right now is, what are you going to focus on? You could be focusing on what I'm saying. You could be focusing on something that's going on in your house. You could be focusing on what you're going to have for dinner, or is this guy ever going to shut up, or whatever it is you're focusing on. But there's 3 patterns of focus, as there's dozens, but 3 I could give you really quick that could help you see how our focus controls our life. See, whatever you focus on, you feel. So if you're focused on, oh my God, this is horrible. If this happens, my life's over. It's going to feel like your life's over, even though it's not. It's kind of like, if you're supposed to meet your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend for dinner at 7 o'clock and you get there at 7 and they're not there, what do you feel? Some people say, I'm pissed off. Some people say, I'm worried. Well, it's only 7. What if it's 7:45 they've not called and they've not texted and they've not shown up? I'm really pissed off. I'm really worried. What if it's 8:30 and they've not called, they've not texted? One woman said to me, then I'm full. I'm not waiting for the bastard anymore, right? But my point is, the person who's worried is focusing on something different and making a different decision. They're focusing on maybe they were in an accident, maybe they were hurt, maybe they were killed. They're giving it that meaning, it freaks them out. The person who's angry, they're focusing on they didn't do it again, they don't care about me, and they make up a meaning. So whatever we focus on, we feel. Have you ever thought someone did something to you and you got so angry and maybe confronted them and then found out you were wrong and you felt like such an idiot? Well, why were you wrong? Because when you focus on it, it feels so true to you, so you think it is true. So what decision, and the second decision, by the way, you make is, what does this mean? The minute you focus on something, you have to give it a meaning. And is this the end or is this the beginning? Is this person dissing me? Is this person ripping me up? Is this person challenging me? Is this person actually coaching me? Is this person actually loving me? If you think they're ripping you apart, you're going to respond very differently, feel different, react different than if you think they're just coaching you or loving you. And so we make these decisions about what to focus on, what things mean, and whatever meaning you give it, it's going to give you an emotion. If you think somebody's ripping you off, you're going to feel very differently than if you think they're trying to help you. And whether it's true or not doesn't matter. All that matters is what you focus on and the meaning you give it. And that'll produce an emotion, and from that you make the third decision, what am I going to do? So if you said to me, Tony, okay, get to the point. What's the decision I need to make? Well, I'll give you one more example. If you asked me a year and a half ago, what would be the most important decision in life, I would say who you decide to love, who you decide to spend your life with, because who you spend time with is who you become. And in my case with my wife, my Bonnie Pearl, my Sage, she's somewhere around. I'm not doing this to make her feel good. She's the most important decision I ever made in that area. But today, my wife and I both agree there's a decision that's even more important than that. Because your husband or wife could die, God forbid. Or they could change their values, change their beliefs, change their life, and leave you, divorce you. So if you're going to have an extraordinary, magnificent life where you're truly fulfilled, then the most important decision to make is that you're going to no longer suffer and you're going to live in a beautiful state every day, even when things don't go your way. Now, what the hell does that mean? Most people suffer. What if, I was in India recently, I have a dear friend there named Krishnaji, and I was sitting down with him and he said, Tony, you know how you teach, if somebody's high energy, they come up with different meanings. Life's different. You call it a peak state. Or if somebody's really low energy, they can't get themselves started. They think everybody's a jerk. They think they're a jerk. And he said, those states affect everything. He said, but instead of peak state, low state, or high energy, low energy, what if you called that every day in our life we live in one of two states? We're either in a state of suffering or we're in a beautiful state. So let's talk about those. I would have never said I'm suffering, right? Remember, I'm an achiever. But as beautiful as my life was, I'd be so happy, and then something would happen and I would feel stressed. Because suffering is stress, or suffering is feeling worried. Suffering is concern. Suffering is over-caring, where you're caring so much for your kids or your family that you're stressed out so much and you don't even get to feel them. Suffering could be feeling sad, feeling lonely, feeling depressed, feeling angry, feeling pissed off. And a year and a half ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said, no, I don't suffer, but yeah, I get pissed off and frustrated. It's part of life. Here's what I found out. It's not part of life. It's the mind. Listen to me now. This brain you and I have is 2 million years old. And as a result of that, we're in a position in our lives where this thing is survival software. It was designed 2 million years ago that when a saber-toothed tiger came, you were either going to fight it or you're going to run as fast as you could, fight or flight. And this software is still running in our brains 2 million years later when there are no saber-toothed tigers. So now we have a life and death reaction to, what do people think about me? Maybe I need to take 21 pictures and find the right one and put the right filter to put it on Facebook so people will like me and think I'm good. I mean, we live in such a crazy world that way. Or do I have enough money? And if you live in North America and you're in poverty, you're the 1% of the world. See, I don't want you to be in poverty, but let's be real. You can only build on success. If you're in poverty in these countries, you literally the 1%. Half the world lives on $2.50 a day, $900 a year. And yet people go around suffering, thinking they don't have enough, when most people are having their life, your life, if you're watching me right now and you're capable, you have access to a computer and the internet, having this, your worst nightmare is somebody else's biggest dream in the world. Would you agree? So the secret is to say, am I in beautiful states of being, or am I suffering? And to end the suffering, I'm going to show you how in a second. We're doing exercise. But first, what are beautiful states? Well, happiness is a beautiful state. What if you made a decision today, a real decision? When I say a real decision, I mean where you cut off any other possibility. The word decision comes from incision. You cut off. I always tell people, if you want to take the island, you burn the boats, right? You have no way to go back. What if you made the decision today that said, I am going to be happy every day of my life, no matter what, even when things don't go my way, even if injustice comes my way. And the reason is not to be Pollyanna, but because life is too short to suffer. And then when I'm suffering, when I'm pissed off and frustrated and stressed, it's so much harder to fix a problem than if you're in a beautiful state. So what would be a beautiful state? Happiness, joy, creativity, drive, hunger, awe, curiosity, fun, playfulness, boldness. When you're in a beautiful state, no one has to tell you what to do, and what you do is always great for you and it's great for other people. It's uplifting. So if you're in a beautiful state, if you train yourself to be in a beautiful state, I was already doing that. I was in a beautiful state most of the time, but not all the time. And one of the things I've learned in my life and my business is you can't manage something if you don't measure it. I wasn't measuring whether I was in a bad state or not. I was just focused on being in a good state most of the time. But when I realized that it was true, that I was suffering, I began to realize that I would get stressed over the littlest things. Do you? I would make little things really big, like they were life and death, because I let this old brain, this old software run, instead of my heart, my soul, and my spirit run the show. I give you an example, simple examples. Like I would get stressed out because somebody didn't do what they're supposed to do. I was so happy, and then I get stressed out. Now, how does that work? Well, I have now 18 companies. I'm blessed. I have 12 of those companies I actively manage. 1,200 employees amongst all the companies across 3 continents in 7 different industries. We do more than $5 billion in sales. What privileges? But that privilege with that many moving parts, what are the chances right now that somewhere in the world, one of the people that I'm working with is screwing up? It's 100% that this is going to happen. When you have 1,200 people all over the world doing different things, somebody's going to be doing something that doesn't work. And so all I had to do was have my phone nearby to lose my happiness. Because all I had to do is pick it up and go, oh my God, so-and-so did this. Or like my friend here was talking about, he turned everything in late. Now I got to figure it out. Or, this is going to happen. It's going to mess things up. And I would lose. My happiness was so cheap. I was giving it up over something so little. Because I thought everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be a certain way. If you're only going to be happy when people do what you want them to do, you're not going to stay very happy very long. If the only way to be happy is if you do things perfectly, you're not going to be happy. And why does happiness matter? Because happiness in your body makes you healthy. Stress does not. Because when you're in a happy state, you can find the solutions. When you're in a happy state, other people want to be around you. It comes from a different place. So what I decided was, I'm going to end suffering as this brain tries to create it. Then I'm going to put my heart in charge. How? First step is you have to become aware that you're suffering, because most of us wouldn't call it that. And what is your favorite flavor of suffering? Some people worry all the time. Some people get really angry real easily. Some people feel lonely and depressed or sad about things. What's the one that you've gone to more often than not? And if you can become aware of it, then the next thing you got to realize, we only suffer because we believe our limiting negative thoughts. See, everybody has negative thoughts. Have you ever thought, I want to kill that son of a bitch? And I often say, you haven't loved if you haven't had that thought, right? So we all have the thought, but we don't believe it, so we don't kill the person. But most of us, as creatures, we have the ability to take our thoughts and make a thought make us feel like shit, make us feel sad, make us feel overwhelmed, make us feel depressed, or we can have a set of thoughts that make us feel excited and enthusiastic and passionate and loved. So when you call it your thoughts, They're not your thoughts. These thoughts have been around for millions of years. You're not the first person to say, I'm not enough, or this person pisses me off, or I don't know what to do. Those thoughts have always been around. If I would have told you 100 years ago, will you pass that to me, Mary, right there, the thing beside you? If I would have told you 100 years ago that you were going to have a little box this size and that you could push a button and you could see people on the other side of the earth like we're doing right now, or have a telephone conversation or a video conference, and it's going to happen because there's invisible waves all around us, and this box is going to pull the invisible waves in it, and you're going to see magically this inside, you would have put me away, right? You locked me up. 100 years ago, if you said you're going to go to the moon and back, they called you a lunatic. That's where the term comes from. So thoughts are waves. And if we hang on to those thoughts, they affect our bodies, our emotions, and our lives. But we can change the channel. It's kind of like there's invisible waves that go into your TV set. And if I turn one channel on, it's the horror channel. I turn another channel on, it's a comedy. I turn another channel on, it's a romance. Another one, it's an epic adventure. Well, the way we use our bodies, if you know my work, changes what thoughts come through us. So I'm going to show you in a couple minutes how to get out of suffering by doing a real simple change with your body that will automatically change your mind and give you liberation, give you freedom from the stress that's there. How many of you, as you're listening, how many of you suffer now, if you're really honest with yourself, more than you want to? Even if it's a little, it's a waste of time. And we suffer over the simplest things. Somebody came to one of my seminars the other day, and they said, oh, Mr. Robbins, how are you? And I said, how you doing? They said, oh, not so good. I said, oh, really? How come? He goes, well, I was flying here, and you know what happened on the way here? We got stuck on the runway and didn't get to take off for 40 minutes. Can you imagine that? It was the worst experience of my life. Really? Sitting in a chair? How stressful is that really? Do you see what we do to our heads? I said, afterwards, after you sat for 40 minutes, did you fly through the air like a bird without having to have wings, without having to use your arms? Did you watch a movie while you were flying? See, we forget how lucky we are. See, in order to suffer, there's 3 things you do. I encourage you to jot them down. 3 words that'll be triggers for you, and you'll know this is what's making you suffer. The first one is, the word is loss. Whenever we think someone did something, and as a result of that, I lost something. Like the gentleman who was talking, was the accountant. Remember, he said, you know, they turned the stuff in late, and now it's my responsibility, and I can't get it done. So he went into suffering. What did he do? He converted this thought into, I'm losing. I've lost time. I've lost opportunity. I'm responsible. Or you might say, because I didn't do something, I lost something. I lost love, or I lost respect, or I lost my free time, or I lost an opportunity. And the human brain, that survival mechanism, is always trying to get you fight or flight, so it's looking for loss. And it'll make it up even if it's not there. The second word is less. If you believe because you didn't do something, or because you did do something, that now you've lost love, you've lost a business opportunity, you'll never be, you have less, I should say, less love, less business opportunity, less respect, you're going to suffer. And the third one is never. If you start believing she did something, he did something, the government did something, I did something, I didn't do something, you didn't do something, and as a result of that, I'll never be happy, I'll never be healthy, I'll never be fit, I'll never have love. Can you imagine the suffering that belief creates for you? So when I catch myself, because the mind does this, feeling like there's a loss, or there's less, or there's never, I get entertained. And the way I do it is I feel the tension coming in my body, and I go, oh, suffering's showing up. Suffering's arising. The mind, that little brain, is starting to do this. Let me come back to my heart. I breathe in my heart the way I'm going to show you in a moment. I slow things down, and I let the thoughts go by. And I witness and go, isn't that a crazy-ass thought going by? And then I focus on what I can appreciate. Let me explain. Let's use the plane example again. I'm privileged to have a private plane, so at this stage of my life, I can fly around the world. And when you're flying as much as I do, it's an incredible gift. But most of my life, obviously, I went commercially. And in the United States, when you go commercially, you're still connected to the internet. You're able to get all your emails done. And God forbid you'd be separated from Instagram or Facebook for a few minutes, right? But when I would go to a place like Australia, I get on Qantas Airlines, and it's a 14-hour flight, and I would stress myself out. I would suffer. I'm like, oh my God, 14 hours. I'm sitting for 14 hours, and I don't have access to the internet. All my emails backing up, and all the people I can't talk to, and all the companies I got to manage. And by the time I get to Australia, there's going to be all these additional emails and more work to do, and I'm going to be behind. I would do this thing in my head. Can you relate at all? I would stress myself out. So one time I got on Qantas Airlines, I'll never forget this, and they announce over the loudspeakers, we now have live internet. And it was like God descended into the airplane. I mean, people were cheering. Some people stood up and clapped, right? And I'm embarrassed to admit I wasn't standing up clapping, but inside I was like, yes, the internet, oh my God, we got access. And what do you think happened within 15 minutes? You guessed it. The thing went down and it never turned on again for 14 hours. And how do you think people responded? They're like, I can't believe this is bullshit. Why are they? These people are incompetent. People were angry. Now think about this. 15 minutes before, it was a miracle to have internet. Now it's an expectation. If you want to free yourself, if you want a magnificent life, if you want a life that is fulfilling, trade your expectations for appreciation and your whole life will change in a moment. See, the reason we suffer is because we obsess about ourselves. We obsess that we're losing something. We obsess we have less of something. We obsess we'll never have something. And some of you say, that's not true. I'm suffering because of my children. My children are not doing well. They're not doing the way they're supposed to, and it just makes me crazy because they deserve more. The reason you're suffering is not because of your children. You're suffering because you feel you failed them. It's still about you. I have done this in seminars that people bring up anything and say, it's not about me. And in a couple of minutes, you can see it's really about you. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. But when you obsess about it and you let your mind do it, it'll give you the illusion of loss. It'll make you believe it'll never be good again. And it's just not true. See, most of us are trying to control everything. Or someone will say, I'm losing control. You never had control. I don't have control. That's in hands larger than ours. But we can influence our lives. Can't control it, we can influence it. And the best way to influence it is be in a beautiful state where your mind and heart work together and come up with answers that you won't get when you're pissed off and worried and scared and concerned or lonely or depressed or angry. Does that make sense? So, I mean, and also it'll change the joy of your life. It'll change your relationships. What if you were God? And what if you created this amazing world and now you come down and you talk to one of your creations and you say, Joe, hey, I'm God. I created you. How do you like this place? And Joe turns to you and says, God, you could have made the temperature nicer. I mean, why didn't you make the temperature go up and down? It gets really hot, gets really cold. Why didn't you just make it like, 75 degrees every day, everywhere? I mean, you're God. You could have done it. Why are you making us sweat and freeze all the time? Plus, you made all these people that are pain in the ass. I mean, why do you create so many tough, challenging people, uncaring people that I got to deal with? Oh, yeah, and plus, look at this. Why aren't you making me immortal? I mean, why do I only last 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years? And then you got things like these ants, these red ants, they come and bite me, and they hurt me. Why would you create an ant that would hurt me? Why wouldn't you just make it so that they were nice? Now, if you were God, and you try to give everything to your creation, and your creation responded like this, would you want to hang out with this person? See, a lot of times people say to me, there is no God. And I said, no, there's a God. He's just ain't hanging out with you because you bitch so much, right? You're not going to feel his presence. On the other hand, what if you're God, you go to your creation and it's Charlie and you say, Charlie, I'm God. I created this place. How's it going? And Charlie goes, oh my God, God, you're so amazing. I mean, this is the most beautiful place in the universe. There's nothing like this place. You created all this water and the sky and the changing temperature, so I'm never bored. And so many unique people that challenge me and make me grow and understand myself more. And you even create these little red ants. Man, they have guts. I'm 1,000 times bigger than they are, and they bite me. What courageous little bastards they are. You're amazing, God. Who are you going to want to spend time with, the first person or the second person? And forget you're God. What if you're just you? See, we all want to be around people that are in beautiful states because they remind us that we can be in that place ourselves. And we all want to avoid people that are pain. Have you ever been around somebody who can suck the oxygen out of the building just by their presence? And have you been around anybody that's not really funny, but they think they are, and because they do, they crack themselves up, they go in a beautiful state, and you find yourself laughing too, even though what they said isn't that funny. It's just their beautiful state is contagious. Listen to me now. Suffering begets more suffering. When people suffer, they invariably help other people to suffer. And the only way out I cannot give you. You are the only person that give yourself liberation. You're the person that give yourself the freedom that you truly deserve. And the way you do it is you make the most important decision of your life tonight if you choose to. Now, some of you are going to blow this off and say, Robbins, he went over on his time, I'm sure. Holy shit, I've really gone over my time. I better wrap this up. I got 5 minutes left. I'll finish this 5. What does this mean? But some of you, and I'm doing this for the few of you that are going to hear me and say, you know what? He's right. Life is too precious to suffer. Who knows how long we're going to live? See, I have a goal. Billionaires are a dime a dozen. What's much more unique is I get the phone call from the billionaire that wants me to come around, turn around the business, and I see their life. And what they really want is to be happy, and they still aren't. The vast majority of people aren't. There's some rare, cool creatures out there that I have dear friendships with. I mean, you look around somebody like Mark Benioff of Salesforce, or you look at somebody like Richard Branson. I mean, he achieves, he knows the science of achievement, and he knows the art of fulfillment. He's enjoying his life completely. So how do we make this real? One, you become honest with yourself tonight and say, I have suffered so much in my life, and when I'm in a suffering state, I can't be present for those I love. I'm not going to perform at my highest level, and I'm sure as hell not going to enjoy this life that is so precious. So I'm ending the suffering. That doesn't mean suffering won't show up. The mind will create something to suffer about, and what you do is you catch it and you kill the monster while it's little. You want to kill Godzilla when he's a baby, not when he's full-grown Godzilla eating your entire life and city, right? And so I want to take you through right now for 2 minutes how to do this. So here's how it's going to work. First, you decide, I've been suffering. Then you decide, I'm not going to suffer anymore. I have a spiritual vision. Just as you need a vision for your business, your relationship, you need a vision for your life. My vision is to live in a beautiful state every day, no matter what. Are there people that have lost their arms, their legs, been blinded, lost all their family, and they live in a beautiful state? You know there are. And you might say, well, they're special. No, they just made the decision. I asked a young man, I met him, really beautiful soul. He'd gone on, I think, 4 trips to Iraq. He was totally healthy, made it back, didn't lose any body parts, and came back with his mind intact, only to jump in a river and I guess it was a river, and an alligator came and bit off his arm. And he was so happy. And I was like, how the hell do you do it? He said, Tony, I was miserable. I was blaming God. I was blaming myself. I was blaming the alligator for doing what alligators do. And he said, you know what I realized? I am going to want to either kill myself or I'm going to be miserable as long as I live if I keep focusing on what I've lost. And so he said, what I focused on is what I have. I have another arm. I have both my legs. I have a heart, a soul. I'm still alive. He said, so I just decided I will not suffer, and I'm going to be grateful for everything I have every day, because here's what gratitude does. The 2 emotions that destroy our lives are anger and fear. Fear keeps you from doing things, and anger destroys yourself and your relationships. You can't be grateful and angry simultaneously. It's impossible. You can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So here's what we're going to do, real fast. I'm running out of time. If I put electrodes on your head and on your heart, and did an EEG and an EKG. So it's an electrical activity. You've seen it at the doctor's office or maybe in hospitals. It's kind of jagged, and your brain and your heart don't look anything like each other in normal life when you're having a normal day-to-day life and stress. But if we do this, and we're going to do it in a moment, I want you to stand up. We're going to put our hands, if you're sitting, please stand up. You'll still be able to see me. I need your body kind of loose. You've been sitting too long already. Shake it out wherever you are. If you're with some friends, shake it out just for a second. We're running down to our last 3 minutes. I want you to put both your hands on your heart. And I want you to physically feel your heart. And I'm going to take you through 2 minutes of just breathing in your heart, feeling your heart, concentrating your heart, and you're going to think of 3 things you're truly grateful for. They could be from childhood, adulthood, anything. They something simple or big. We're going to do them one at a time, and we're going to use them to feel grateful and have it be real, based on something real in our life. Then what we're going to do is we're going to solve a problem. Let me tell you the problem we'll solve. Right now, I want you to decide, is there some unfinished business somewhere in your life? Unfinished business in your business, in a business relationship, in your intimate relationship. I don't know what the heck that sound was. Okay. In your intimate relationship, is there a place where there's some unfinished business? I'm sure there is. Pick something that you need to resolve, but you're not resolving it. You're keeping yourself busy, which is another word for you're stressed out about the situation. I don't even want to think about it. And ideally pick something that if you really focused on it, would make you stressed, like 0 to 10, where 10 is totally stressed and 0 is not at all. Make it a 7, 8, 9, or a 10, okay? You got one? I'll watch these guys over here. You got one over here, you guys, that I can see on camera? Cool, I really appreciate it. So here's what I want you to do now. Decide where is it 0 to 10, 7, 8, 9, or 10 of upset. And then forget about it. Put both your hands on your heart, everyone. Please stand up so you use your whole body. Hands on your heart, close your eyes, and breathe deep in your heart right now. Feel the power of your breath in your heart. Feel the oxygen flowing through your heart. Breathe deep. And feel grateful for this physical heart of ours, because you didn't have to earn it, did you? Something loved you enough to give you life. And that life is so precious, and it only exists because of this heart. That you didn't have to succeed to get this heart. You didn't have to prove your worth. It was given to you. And as long as it beats, you live. It beats 100,000 times a day, pouring blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels. If we put all your blood vessels and lined them up, 60,000 miles that go around the earth twice at the equator. What a gift. What are you proud your heart has guided you to do? Or what do you appreciate your heart has allowed you to feel? What has your heart given you that you're grateful for? And then as you're breathing deep in your heart, I want you right now to think of one thing, one moment in your life you could feel incredibly grateful for. Breathe it, feel it, step into it as if you were there. See what you saw then, hear what you heard then. Breathe the way you're breathing when you felt filled with gratitude or joy or appreciation. Feel it. Fill up with the gratitude like you're there. And just enjoy it. Think about how this moment in your life was a gift, a blessing, and give thanks for it. Think of a second moment now you could feel grateful for. Again, it could be at any age, any stage of life. It could be now, it could be years ago, it could be in childhood. Just think of a magic or a beautiful moment that you could feel grateful for right now if you wanted to. And then step into that moment. Breathe deep into your heart and feel like you're there again. Seeing, hearing, feeling what you felt when you were filled with gratitude. Feel it right now. Feel the blessing of that moment. How sacred, how beautiful, how precious it was and is. Think of a third moment now you could feel grateful for. Step in it. Feel it. Any moment in life, but a moment where you feel love or joy or gratitude at such a deep level. Recapture that feeling. Breathe the way you were breathing then when you were filled with those positive emotions. Put the look on your face like you did when it felt so good, when you were so grateful. And then maybe think of one more thing. Think of a coincidence. I always teach that life is always happening for us, not to us. But we fail to notice it. What's a coincidence where you plan to go someplace or do something and then you bumped into someone you developed a friendship with and it was all coincidence, or someone you fell in love with, or a business opportunity or something. You didn't do it. It happened for you and it led to something you're grateful for. Feel it. Feel grateful for that coincidence. And just think of one more coincidence you could feel grateful for that led to something beautiful in your life. And keep breathing it, feeling it. Enjoy it. Now, while you're doing this, feel the gratitude, the joy. And as you do, as you feel it, don't let the feeling go. You're in a beautiful state, aren't you? While you're in this place, keep breathing in your heart. Think now of the thing that was stressing you out and ask yourself this question from the heart, not the head, from your heart. Feeling this beautiful feeling, ask yourself about the situation that's unfinished. All I need to focus on in that situation, all I need to remember, all I need to do is what? In that situation that's been bothering you, breathe in your heart, feel this beautiful state of gratitude, and ask yourself, in that situation, all I need to focus on, all I need to believe, all I need to remember is what? All I need to do is what? And your heart knows the answer, doesn't it? Try this now, wherever you are in the world, whether I can see you or not. If your heart knows the answer of what you need to focus on or do, raise your hand, and my Google Hangout groups will be the ones I can actually see. Raise your right hand above your head if you have the solution, if you know the solution. Yeah, that's right. Good, good, good. Good. Everybody in Google Hangout has it. Open your eyes. If you were in a room, I'd have you look at each other and you'd see what I see, which is 99% of the time you can see right now. All the Google Hangout guys, except the moderator, got their hands up. You can drop your hand. What I want you to see is that in just a couple of minutes, in just a few minutes of being in a beautiful state, you can come up with answers for things that are stressing you. You can get rid of the things that are bothering you, and you can have the beautiful life that you deserve. So I invite you to join me on a quest of having a spiritual vision that says, if I live in a beautiful state, not only will my life be beautiful, but everyone will be touched and uplifted by me. And we're all capable of it. I'm not saying it's easy. In the beginning, for me, it wasn't a 90-second rule. It should have been a 4-hour rule or a 4-day rule. But the more you do it, the better it gets. It's like a muscle. And once you get that muscle going, you're going to find yourself just letting go, letting go, letting go. If you can't do anything about it, let it go and go to work on what you can change. That's what's going to make you feel fulfilled and happy. So I think I went way the hell over, 8:30, 9:30, 10. Okay, I got a little crazy with you, but I just wanted to add value. This is my mission. And watching this film, I hope some of you go back and watch it again. I hope you'll share it with your family and friends because it can remind you of what's really possible and how quickly we can change. But the real changes that you want will happen in a beautiful state. And if you truly stop the suffering and live in that beautiful state, it'll only happen if you make it a must. And if you get off track and you realize you're suffering, don't beat yourself up. Just go, wow, I was suffering. Okay, let's let go and let's move on. The more you do it, the better you get, the more joy, the more happiness, the more love you're going to experience in your life. I hope you've enjoyed this time. Those who stuck it out, I don't know how many of you did. I'll have to check later on. But if you did, God bless you. You must be like me. You must be hungry and driven and wanting more, not only for yourself, but for others. So live strong, live with passion. God bless, and I hope to see you very soon. And my wife's going to come say goodbye to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, please. I want to see your screening parties. If you would, snap a photo of the people together and upload it to Facebook. And if you go to tonyrobbins.com/documentary and or use the hashtag I'm not your guru, and you send us your pictures, we're gonna do a little competition, and we're gonna pull out of all the people just a random component. We're gonna turn it into a, what do you call it, like a fishbowl, and we're gonna pull out 2 people to go to Date with Destiny as my guest, and we're gonna pull out 2 people to go to Fiji, the Maali Resort, for a week as my guest. So I know you don't need incentives to go share this in your parties, but do. And if you do another party and send it, you can enter the contest as often as you want. But the contest is just designed so that we spread the word. Wherever you do, please, tonight, consider cutting off suffering and entering a new world of liberation, a new world of love, a new world of joy. God bless you. Thanks for spending time with me. Hope to see you soon.
Good on.